I see I didn't push go live. Thanks for joining, guys. Yeah, we're going to roll on this one. Yeah, country boy, this is a conversation that needs to be had. And it might be one that most people don't want to hear, even though it needs to be had. So, like I was saying, it's always great to be on a fly on the wall and watch yourself. It's good to do that for yourself, to be able to take an objective look at yourself, honest, objective. Some people go see a therapist for that. Corporations hire consultants, even boards of directors. People hire others who are on the outside, who are not caught up in the culture of the organization. So it's good to do that with your family. It's good to do that with your community. I mean, if businesses do that so that they can self-evaluate and be able to make moves that are not typical from within their existing culture or paradigm. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take a look at this. We're going to look at the Black community. We're going to look at the United States. We're going to look at the world. And we're going to do it from a very different perspective. Hey, Sudata Roy, thanks for joining, man. Thanks for being in the house. Lando, good to see you. Always good to see you here. Hey, Samuel, thank you. Thank you. Before I forget, always, hey, $20, man. Appreciate that. Thank you very much, man. Always love your support, man. You've been a great supporter of mine. And my intent is that you become an even stronger supporter after tonight, so we can talk about if so let's look at this like a doctor, right? So if you go to a doctor's another person that people go to for an outside perspective, and sometimes you get more than one opinion from different doctors. So I'm going to give more than one perspective on this one topic. Except a doctor cannot prescribe a medicine or a cure without doing a thorough and clear and competent evaluation of what's actually happening. So we're going to do first an evaluation of what's going on and look at this from a perspective that maybe is not often discussed. And then we're going to talk about some things that can be done. So I urge you to invite people to join in this conversation so that it can be had, and all the people who get upset about it, and they're bothered by it, and they don't like it, and there's a mindset that needs to be addressed and transformed. Going to a new paradigm is definitely transformational. And transformational is not the walk in the park. It's not like the way we're given is. I heard a few great, people hear these nice quotes and they make you feel good, or they take a few verses out of a book and they make you feel good about yourself, and then you leave and you feel like you've actually transformed or you're a different person. But if you understand the way the brain and neuroscience works, like, you have to literally disrupt a normal mindset so that you can move to a different road, a different path, get off the one you're on. You have to create an entirely new path, but you have to see some of the challenges, some of the dead ends that are on the path that you are on, and how if you stay on it, you'll continue to stay there. So, and I hate using one-liners because they're like slogans. And if you live your life by slogans, you're going to be in trouble, especially when things get rough. But a one-liner is what got you to where you are won't get you to where you're not. And that's something that really needs to be addressed. Hey, Sudata, thank you, man, for the Cash App. Thank you. I appreciate that for dropping it. $10 Cash App. Really appreciate your support, man. So in about 2 minutes, I'm going to share a video. But I had some thoughts about this. So before I share the video, I want to give you some facts. From 1944 until 1964, the Black community experienced its greatest economic prosperity in the U.S. Just imagine that, right? So during that time, a vibrant Black community was being built, right? So men were coming home from World War II. They had just saved the world. And so being in the military gave them access to some money that they were actually able to spread within the community. Now, think about that. 1944 to 64, that's a Jim Crow period, and Black people are segregated into their own communities. So they had no choice except to buy from other Black businesses. And it supported that economic prosperity, 1944 to 1964. Now, you also have to think when you are growing a business, a community, a family, at some point, especially if it's a complex ecosystem, right, where you have many different moving parts, a lot of people, businesses, institutions, you hit this gap, like there's this businesses hit it, and where your cash, it becomes more difficult to sustain yourself. So companies get something they call a bridge loan, and it helps you bridge that gap. So let's say the Black community was hitting that gap, and they just needed to be able to work through that growing pain. Well, instead of working through it, in 1964, that gap was bridged with a Civil Rights Act from the government, a government handout, help, affirmative action, and desegregation. And once you created desegregation in the Black community, the people with the most money moved out of the Black community to more affluent areas, and you created a lot of problems. One is the best minds left the Black community. The examples of success, engineers, architects, lawyers, doctors, even successful blue-collar workers, they started leaving. So what do you have left? For success, pimps and drug dealers. And at the same time, welfare starts hitting hard where the women are kicking the men out the house. Affirmative action was initially supposed to be for the Black men coming home from the Vietnam War, but Black women hijacked that in the 70s because they were counted as a double minority. So large corporations were getting credits. They were getting recognized for meeting their quotas of hiring women and minorities. So instead of hiring a white woman and a Black man, or a Hispanic man and a Black woman, if they had to hire 1,000 women and minorities, what they did is they hired a Black woman, checked the box for minority, Black, and then they checked the box for woman. So they hired 500 Black women instead of 1,000 women and minorities. So they cheated. So that hurt the Black community. And I'm going to go on about the kind of damage that created. But there's something else. We live in a global community right now. And if you just look at it this way, almost like it's tribal, group economics. You have different communities around the world: China, Vietnam, Nigeria, Great Britain, United States, Canada. And each of those communities work together and they engage in trade and commerce. They sell things, products and services, and they also, the people within their communities, buy from within the community. That helps the community thrive. So then if that's on a global scale, then you look at this in the United States, are Black Americans fully engaged in the global community? Chaos for you, right? This may be more about classism and group economics, as I'm saying. So is your group engaged in global commerce? Are they buying, are they making products and services that support a thriving global economic community? How are you engaged? How are you participating? Are you just the consumer in that? Because if you're just a consumer, then you'll have no way of self-sustaining. It's like a business that just makes products, or they just buy. Imagine a business that only buys stuff from vendors and never sells anything. Eventually, they'll go bankrupt. Maybe it's misunderstood, Ed, maybe. So I'm going to do a screen share. I'd like to share someone else's perspective on this. And I think you guys will find this valuable. We can talk about this, as well as some of the other things that I've stated. You guys may know this gentleman. He calls himself Coach Greg Adams. And I see you on Instagram. Thanks for joining. This is going to be a provocative topic, not one that everyone's stomach or taste buds will find pleasant. We're going to take it on because it's not appropriately addressed. So, guys, as you come in, smash that like button, smash that thumbs up button, and share it. Share the video. You see, I'm getting great support in the Cash App. Love your support for Cash App, PayPal. I really appreciate any support that you provide. Super Chat. And let's hear what Greg Adams says about the Black community. He says a cesspool. Maybe you'll say it's strong language. Let's hear what he has to say.
And this is related to the Black community. Now, a lot of us Black men have targeted videos for the Black community. And the reason why we do this is not a video to denigrate Black people or Black women or Black men who are in these communities. This video is to shed a light, to point a mirror to a community that needs help. And the reason why it needs help is because they're always asking for help. They're always asking for government assistance. They're always asking for the president to do something for them. And when the president doesn't do something for them, the president is a racist. The Black community is a cesspool. Now, it is in that condition because, number one, it was helped to be in that condition. And number two, the people in that condition don't help themselves get out of that position. When you talk about racism, and I want to figure out what I'm going to title this video, but when you talk about racism, it is probably the most overused and overhyped word that we have in our lexicon at this point.
So, Coach Greg Adams, he thinks it's an overused word lexicon. And I would assume he's not just talking about in the Black community. Perhaps he's talking about in the world. or throughout the US? I mean, is it overused throughout the US? I mean, if we start looking at some of the statistics, and I'll share some of those with you about what's really happening in the US, and maybe we're responding to, maybe it's sensationalism, and we'll start to think about that. So, are people being led to feel certain ways about themselves and everyone around them? Yeah, Larry Elder. Yep. So let's get into some more of this.
Because racism is not holding our Black community down. You can talk about institutional racism till the cows come home, but our condition has nothing to do with race. You have to realize that our society and our economy is headed towards globalism. It may be headed to a one world order or any of those things that you want to believe in, but we are a global society now. No one cares about color. The only people that might care about color are people who are on the low end of the spectrum of production of whatever class you're in. If you believe in class, you can go to a white community that is a low income community and a low income Black community, and they still believe in race and racism. They still may hold racist feelings against each other. But if you go to any community that is considered middle class or upper class, race is the least of their concern.
So what do you guys think of that? I saw someone say classism. So he said you go to middle class, you go to a lower class of people, and you're likely to run into this idea of racism. When you go to middle class and up, well, that's not what people are concerned about. So is this really the problem? So if let's just take for an assumption that what he just said, if you go to a lower class, you're likely to hear conversations about racism. Middle class and up, that's the least of the concern. So has the Black community identified itself as being a lower class? Like is being Black synonymous with being hood, and being hood means poverty, means you don't speak English properly, you don't have the best conflict resolution skills, there's pride in going to prison, you fight to resolve things instead of talking things through. There's abuse. You may see more rape, drugs, alcohol, crime. Sudata, tell me why you don't agree. SW, that's what I'm getting at. Like, is this just a matter of mindset? So has the Black community embraced a mindset? So, if you go back before the 80s, 1970s and before, there was, everyone in the US knew that there was this like trailer park community of low educated, maybe even incestuous. You may have they may have even had money, like, the plumber who makes money. And the plumber is the guy who his pants were always hanging down and he goes under your sink and the crack of his ass is screaming out. And it was understood that they were a lower class of people. Everyone, regardless of whether you were Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, you understood that trailer park was a certain kind of mindset and community. And in time, it seemed as though the Black community embraced the trailer park and put their own stamp or style on trailer park and embraced that. I mean, the trailer park community was always alienated. You know, you could get a plumber, an electrician, yeah, Hatfields and McCoys, right, 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 country boy. That's who was there, and people looked down on them. But yet they had skills too, and they were relevant for what they were relevant for. But there was a mindset that they lived with. Interesting chaos for you, really. Anyone that was lower than them, interesting, or they looked down on. Okay, so interesting. So I'm not sure what you disagree with, Sudata, if it hasn't held you back. So what else does he have to say?
Their concern is survival and the economy. So let's get back to the Black community.
So he's saying middle class and up, they're concerned with survival in the economy. So to survive in this economy means that you develop skills and competencies that are valued in this economy where you can trade your skill for compensation. And the more skilled, the better you are at it, the more you can trade or the more responsibility you can take on if you're in a leadership position. Leadership is a great skill to take on. Interesting chaos for you. Um, I don't want to make this really about relationships, but in the same way, what you just said, chaos for you, is if a woman makes getting to know a guy about sex, it's not the guy making the relationship about sex. It's her who's using sex as a carrot on a stick, which makes the relationship about sex as opposed to getting to know one another. I think that's analogous to what you're saying.
Real quick, we hear a lot of dissent for our current president, Donald J. Trump.
Now, just for everyone's information, this was made September of 2018, so he's speaking in current day, and Donald Trump was president, of course, in 2018. So, but his points are relevant regardless of who's in office. The fact that Trump was in office will support some of the things that he's saying.
And if any Black man agrees with Donald Trump, they are called a sellout or a racist, and it's just disgusting. This is our president who was voted in by the people of the United States, the silent majority, mostly Black men, white women, and white men. Whether you like it or not, he is the president, and will continue to be the president. But he is not your savior. This man cannot be controlled. He wants to do whatever's best, and I believe he is focused on economy, trade, the dollar, the bottom line. But the Black community, they don't believe in any of that. They don't believe in the bottom line. They believe in handouts, socialism. They believe in someone that is going to rescue them. They're waiting for leaders to come out and help them. And half of the time, those leaders are church leaders, reverends, pastors who have been raping and pillaging the Black community since the beginning. They're liars. They sold you a lie. Now, some of them have helped us, in the civil rights movement.
Okay. So I've heard guys say this, that if you're as a black man and you support Trump, you get called names, you're a sellout. And I've heard a lot of black men say they supported Trump. They thought Trump represented masculinity. He wasn't a guy who was just going to bend over and pick up the soap and allow other countries to do as they pleased. So I've heard guys say, echo his words. But he said something about the church, and I don't know how people feel about that. He said the church hasn't helped. And then he went on to say pastors helped with the civil rights movement, which actually was a nail in the coffin. And people don't really see that until after the fact. As I said, the Civil Rights Act, it really is pointing to what he's saying. It was a handout. So, hey guys, let's smash that like button. Just get the likes up and share this video. So, if you look at the black community as growing and thriving, the greatest economic prosperity in the black community happened from 1944 until 1964. In 1964, it's like they dropped the ball. They dropped the ball because instead of them doing what a business does, which was to bridge the growing pain, they took a government handout and they took it with affirmative action. They took the handout with desegregation, and they took the handout with welfare, where they asked black women, they said, you take this deal where, hey, I got a deal you can't refuse. Hey, they literally knocked door to door and said, hey, I got a deal you can't refuse. I got something called a welfare package. I'm going to give you a check for each of your children. How many you got? Two. Have more, you get more money. I'm going to give you food stamps. I'm going to pay your rent. I'll even put you in a place. Hey, I got a deal. But you got to get the man out. Get that man out your house. We'll take care of you. The government, hey, forget about it. The government's your new husband. And a lot of women took that deal. They took the deal. There were a lot of homeless men in the 60s. I mean, they actually started taking that package was offered in the 50s. In the 60s, they knocked door to door and told women, if you take the deal, you kick the man out. Now, I understand some women didn't take the deal. I don't need it. Some women took the deal and kept the man in the house, but way too many kicked the guy out the house. So now you're raising children in a single parent household, and anyone who wants to deny that a single parent household uh, gives children a disadvantage by not having both parents, you haven't looked at the facts and the statistics. So what he said was the pastors actually helped with civil rights. They were actually taking a handout. What would have been smarter, right? You had people running numbers. You had cats who were doing other illegal activities. They could have helped. I should have had this guy come on the show. There's a guy I know. His uncle was in Baltimore and he ran numbers. He made a ton of money. And what he did is he invested. He provided, you could say, a bridge loan. He helped businesses, black businesses, bridge the gap, and they were more able to hire people, increase inventory, be able to sell, grow. So when a community, whether a business gets in that gap where they don't have enough cash to support the next level of growth, businesses get it from banks, a bridge loan or an investor, usually a bank. But if the black community could have funded itself, they could have bridged that gap and created a much stronger, thriving black community and been able to uh, hire more people within the community. They didn't do that. They took a handout from the government. Yeah. Well, no, initially, Sudata, it was black women who were the greatest beneficiaries in the 70s. The feminists told black women, "Hey, look, you have a welfare check, and we'll give you a job in corporate America. You don't need a man anymore." And that created a certain mindset. Initially, it was black women who were the greatest beneficiaries. What we're seeing now, when you talk about the face of diversity, is whether it's in management in corporate America or boards of directors or any just a job, any job. It's you see white women now, but it wasn't that way in the 70s. So what else can we get from the coach here? What else? Does he have any words of wisdom? Are you guys are you guys ready to shoot the messenger here? Coach Greg Adams, let's see what else he has to say. Remember, this is 2018.
But we're still waiting for another leader to come out and help us. Now, me, myself, the black community is a place that I've abandoned so long ago. I haven't lived in a black community since I was a teenager. Maybe I can't even remember. I mean, the community that I lived in even then as a teenager was a mix of white, black, and Hispanic. But I have relatives and family that consider themselves members of the black community. And they look at me as if I am the worst thing for the black community. That I'm a traitor, I'm a sellout, I am a Oreo. Because I don't want to be a part of the destructive nature of the black community. 70, 80% of our communities are raised in single mother households. The crime rate is off the charts in terms of blue collar crime, robberies, gun violence with illegal weapons, drug selling. And then mass incarceration becomes a topic because individuals who aren't told to put themselves in a good position make bad choices. And we want to believe that they're forced to make these bad choices. And we want to believe that the police are put in these communities 10 times more than they are in the white communities, only because they're black. So I'll go on message boards, I'll go on posts related to anything political, and it automatically turns into race. I mean, if it's a Donald Trump post, it's going to turn into racism. If it's a Nike post, it's going to turn into racism talk. But I'll go on there and I'll express my opinion. And I will have not only black people call me a sellout, I'll have white people call me sellout. And most of them are white women who date black men who might identify themselves as black or fighting for the black cause. But why am I all of a sudden the enemy? Because I speak different than the black hive mind. I don't speak the talking points of the black community.
What do you guys think of that? So he's implying that there's a level of censorship in the black community. Someone said mindset earlier. So yeah, if you listen to the kinds of conversations people have, they will tell you the kind of mindset they have. And yeah, chaos for you, right? Many of the white liberals. I'm going to say something. The worst thing, one of the worst things that happened to the black community is for the white community to feel sorry for them and to say, "Oh, you're oppressed and it's racism." Because see, once you agree with someone who's playing victim, then they now are so steeped in a trap they can't get out. So remember at the beginning of this, it's I'm asking, I'm suggesting that it's wise to do some kind of audit where you can look at yourself as a fly on a wall and see yourself from a different perspective. As I said, corporations bring in consultants to help them examine themselves from an outside perspective. It's very healthy to do that. And so it sounds like what Coach Greg Adams is saying is if you offer another perspective, you're called a sellout or coon or some other word. Interesting, SW. Chaos for you. Those are strong words, man. So, yeah, yeah, we're going to talk about some feminism and actually who started it. A lot of people think women started feminism.
I speak push for success, for drive at all costs. That is the best thing for the Black community. But no, we want sympathy in the Black community. We want handouts. And when they're taken away, WIC, housing vouchers, when those things are taken away, it's racism. We want to uplift the single mothers and down the men who can't raise their children because they can't afford them.
So, how many of you think that's a problem? This whole uplifting. So, you know, he said uplift the single mother. So, when you uplift the single mother, are we encouraging or more women to do that? To say, you know, hey, you go, you don't need a man. You can raise that child alone. You can teach that boy to be a man, and give that little girl what she needs. But have we has the Black community rewarded? So that's a good thing, you know, and this is going to sound kind of crude. Well, when you want your dog to do certain things, you reward them. You give them a treat. You give them positive reinforcement. Good boy, good, you know, you pet your dog for doing what you want them to do. And so by rewarding women for being single mothers and saying you can do it and don't need anyone, did that self perpetuate? Did that create the problem by itself? Well, and so if you feed them for bad behavior, then they will think bad behavior is good. Like the only way people know bad behavior is destructive is you don't reward them for it. However, if you reward them for bad behavior, it will self perpetuate. You'll have cycles of it for generations, and they'll never understand the consequences of their behavior. So you continue having children without a father in the home, and you start choosing guys like that. Yeah, yep, that's part of the chaos for you. The whole give a fish or teach them to fish.
13, 14, 15 ways to prevent a pregnancy, to terminate a pregnancy, to send their kids to adopt, yet they choose to raise kids under these conditions and continue the cycle of the cesspool of the destruction of the Black community. Look at these communities, and you tell me, would you raise anybody in these communities? So when people like me who achieve a certain level of success, who earn a certain income, who has a certain drive, who has a certain need for safety, when you accuse people like us for leaving the Black community and being sellouts, traitors, for thinking globally instead of locally, when you accuse us of being less than Black, it really reflects on the person that you are. Socialism is a big part of the Black community. We want not only the government to help us get out of the conditions that we're in without making any changes in our behavior. But the people who choose to not be a part of this cesspool, we denigrate them. We accuse the men of selling out their race when it is us who are uplifting the race. We're making a difference for people who possibly were racist. We're moving to neighborhoods that white people look at me and they go, damn, how in the hell is he here and making it? And I'm struggling. He must be somebody that I can look up to. And then generally, white people do look up to me and go, he's done well. He's being a father to his kids. He is the difference. He's making a difference. But I go back to the black community, I'm a sellout. I agree with Donald Trump about one subject, I'm a sellout. See, in the black community, you cannot have your own thought. They give you your talking points early. And since 70-80% of our kids are raised by single mothers, despite the condition, I don't care how it happened. It happened. And it's happening. I don't care if the father ran off or the mother couldn't afford birth control. I don't care what happened. That's what the condition is. If that is the condition, would not be a benefit to your son or your daughter to tell them, hey man, don't do it that way. Do it this way. Hey man, let me show you how to run your own business. Hey young lady, let me speak life into you. Let me teach you how to not dress like your mother. Hey young lady, don't raise children in single mother homes. Don't be a non-accountable, non-producing, child support collecting, unmodest, unclean, poor behaving person. Choose better. Be better. You know, people like me could be a leader in the community, but I don't speak desperation. I don't speak poor me. I don't speak racism is holding us back. The reality is, as our society develops into the global society that it will be, whether you like it or not, the communities like the black community are going to be the first places where you will see death and destruction because the poor are going to be made into slaves first.
The poor will be made into slaves first. And that technically could have nothing to do with racism. There's a guy by the name of Charles Murray. He's written a book called Coming Apart. And he's talking about how the lower class in the white community is growing. He wrote this book not looking at races, he just looked at the white community, and he's looking at how the lower class of the white community is being very much impacted the way the black community was with welfare and giving the jobs to women instead of men. And they are becoming criminals, and drug addicts, and alcoholics, and they're playing video games, and they have single mothers. It's the same pattern. It's a mindset. It's that trailer park community that isn't being self-sustainable. They're falling into many of the traps. So yes, I see the comments about welfare, and yes, welfare was extremely destructive to the black community, very much. And it didn't have to be taken. Like they made a deal. I got a deal you can't refuse. They didn't have to take it because many did not take it. Like they thought those who took it thought they were getting free money. It was something for free, and it wasn't. You know, that's interesting, Ed. Imposters within. So uh, there were three presidents in Africa: president of Ghana, Nigeria, and Congo. Those three presidents. And I think Nigerian president and the Ghanaian, both went to Harvard here in the U.S. and they returned and they ran their countries. And those three presidents were uniting all of Africa. I forget how many countries are in Africa, 56. They were uniting the whole continent as one nation. So they were creating the United States of Africa, one global economy, one military, and they put an embargo on the U.S. for cacao. Cacao is how you make chocolate. It's an ingredient in Coca-Cola. And they put an embargo on. They were not going to trade cacao with the United States. Well, what happened is what you said. Someone from within killed the president of Ghana, and the whole movement fell apart. Same, Shaka Zulu had done a great job of keeping the Europeans out of South Africa, and his own people killed him. Imposters within. And yes, country boy, lots of women having premarital sex and randomly getting pregnant, and they collect a check for it. SW, that's a really good point. Getting pussy is a priority, and it still is, and it's mind-boggling that no one sees that is a failed mindset. It has accomplished nothing. Yeah, Chaos View. That movie is really a classic idiocracy. In the beginning of the movie, it was so silly, I almost just turned it off. It was just outrageous. But when you get the big picture and understand the movie and the message it's sending, it's phenomenal. Yeah, Ed, and so there's a problem with what I was saying, rewarding people for bad behavior. So there was a time, you go back not too far, you can go back to the 60s, and if a woman, especially teenager, was impregnated and not married, that brought shame to the family. I mean, that girl was not allowed to go certain places. She was ashamed. She disgraced her family. So we don't you see that as a disgrace anymore. We reward it. And so your point about Megan 3 and Cardi B, they're being rewarded for bad behavior. SW, that's a really good question. If I just look at it strictly from who I worked for and clients, my clients have been non-black. They have been Middle Eastern or white primarily. Some help from the Latino community, but yeah, mostly Middle Eastern and white. So Coach Greg Adams is almost done. Let's see what else he has to say.
The easiest way to do it: incarcerate the people, incarcerate the men, give them drugs, give them no support. That is the black community. How can you get yourself out of it? Stop thinking the same way you've been thinking for the last 60 years, because that way of thinking has got us this particular situation. Now look at these photos. This is your community. You know no better, because that's all you've experienced in life. That is it. That's where you've seen. That's all you've seen. Some of you have had the fortunate situation of being bussed out to the suburbs, and then when you go out there, you hate the condition that the white people are in because you feel that they were handed that opportunity. Now, you'll get no argument from me that white people certainly have had advantages in this country. But at this point in our history, there is nothing that's holding us back other than the Black community, other than yourself, other than you waiting for somebody to give you something. That, my friend, is not how it's going to be done. You're not going to accomplish it that way. You must flee or face what I just said. The poor will be made into slaves. And that's what you are. And you don't even know it. In order to get out of that situation, you must free yourself. Don't fall back into the cycle. Don't be a victim. And don't feel like you are a sellout to your race because you want to achieve. That Black community only has hotep hustlers, Black power speakers, religious leaders, and single mothers. That's it. Why the hell do you want to be there? Go out, create your own community. Something different. That's it for me, man. Peace.
Powerful words, huh? Yeah, that's another one, country boy. Yeah, yeah. Hey, chaos for you. I was telling someone that my grandfather, he grew up with four generations: his parents, grandparents, and great grandparents. So that's four generations in one house. Can you imagine how much knowledge transfer, how much happens in that household, how much stability there is? So they wiped out, and my grandfather's great grandfather, who would be my great 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 grandfather, lived to be 113. So he was born in the early 1800s, died in 1923, and he would have seen a lot. So, so we got rid of growing up with your grandparents in the home, which means you have automatic babysitter, right? You have some stability, take some pressure off of the married couple. So we got rid of that, and now we're all the way down to getting the man out the house. And I guess the next stop eventually will have the government raise your children. There won't even be any need. You'll just be like an assembly line having children, and someone else will raise them. Is that where we're headed? Let me take a couple of calls. Want to hear what you think about all this. Area code 870-870. You're live and on the air with Straight Talk. What's your name and where you calling from?
Good evening to you. How's it going, man?
All right. Tell everyone your name and where you calling from.
Oh, this your boy Kendrick from good old Arkansas, man. What's that?
All right. Good enough. Thanks for calling, man. So what do you think? I have thoughts about all this, and I've shared some of them, but I wanted to share Coach Greg Adams, who had some really good thoughts. What do you think of this topic?
A good topic, and you couldn't have picked an even better example than Coach Greg got.
Okay.
You really couldn't see it.
So what do you think of the topic? Thank you for that.
Oh, it's needed. That's how I look at it, cause I'm both optimistic and I'm both neutral on that topic. I see it almost 50-50.
What do you mean?
Some of it's still going on, but then too, you got a lot of people who don't want to associate themselves with that bad black shadow of the past. that went on in this country. So it I don't know if that word being overly used or what, but now it's not the main factor that's out here.
Okay. What do you think is the main factor?
I'm gonna be careful with you. It ain't racism. You
Okay.
got the other groups of people out here that's up over everybody. That's part of the problem.
Okay. All right. All right. Good. Hold on 1 second. Let's see if we can bring in area code 314. 314. You're live and on the air with Straight Talk. What's your name and where you calling from?
Oh, I'm getting some echo.
Well, my name's Bianchi. I'm calling from the Midwest and South. How you doing?
Hey, man. How you doing? Haven't heard from you in a while. Thanks for calling in.
No, the answer to your question, it is used too much. And see, it's only directed toward a particular ethnic group,
Okay.
Mm.
and that's white. Well, blacks are racist too. Let me ask you something.
Sure.
If you don't have 3,683 blacks shot in 263 days since Memorial Day of last year, that's 263 days. 3,663 blacks shot by other blacks.
Wow.
With 556 murders. That was true this past Wednesday. Now, isn't that racism? Because if somebody else done it, that's what they will be hollering. I mean, when I say they, the loudmouths or the vocal talk persons would be hollering it. So my question is racism the act or is it the skin color?
Interesting.
It's the act. And you know another thing too. Racism isn't illegal. Discrimination isn't illegal. Hating ain't illegal unless you violate a U.S. citizen's civil rights.
Right, right.
So a person can say, I don't want you around me. I don't want you marrying my daughter. Society would call them a racist, and racism, the word has evolved today.
They would actually.
Almost completely unrecognized compared to what it was back in the 60s.
Right.
But it's still out there.
Can you hear me, sir?
Oh,
I can. Is that's
okay.
Us, right? But hold
Yes. I was just making sure. Okay.
on. Let him finish. Let him finish.
Yeah, sorry.
yeah.
Right.
So it's it's not illegal, and the way it's used is totally, like you said, somebody say they don't like you. Oh, I don't want you coming over my house. If a white person say that, they're racist. I know black organizations that don't want whites in their organization.
Right.
Are they racist? Well, if you're going to use that judgment, yes, they are. And the biggest thing that I think that plagues black society is economics and academics. Have y'all seen a Nigerian lately? What color is their skin?
Yeah, they excel here in the U.S.
They excel in education more so than whites and Asian, and also household income on an average.
Correct. And wait, IQ test. They do well on the IQ test, and a lot of people say the IQ tests are racist. Yet Nigerians do well.
Well, they say math and science is racist too nowadays, so
African immigrants do better than native blacks. You have to call them native blacks, the ones that's quote unquote descendants of slaves. And you see, that's another thing when they talk about reparations, you want reparations from the whites, now they want it from the government. But the U.S. government didn't make no money off of slavery. It had nothing to do with it. But see, the story always go back to Africans that was landed here on the shores of this continent. But what was going on the African continent to cause them to be expelled? Not all, but a lot. Nobody talks about that.
Right. They were selling.
Slavery was going on big time in Africa.
Mhm.
Probably 1,000 years before they met any European.
Right.
In Ghana, they had slaves in everything, in agriculture, fishing. They had them in the castles. They had them, and people had them in their homes, and you had people that also had them for pleasure. Whites could not went into Africa and walked out with no people. Just think about that. They got involved in a business that had been going on forever. And when Portuguese first came down into Africa, they wasn't out looking for people. They was looking for gold. And they had these big seaworthy ships that not only could sail on the seas, but they could carry a whole bunch of stuff. Countries like Nigeria, Ghana, Senegal, they was trading with each other for commodities, food stuff, and also humans. So when they seen these Portuguese big ships, they hired them because they was only using dugout canoes. You can't put much in no dugout canoes. They didn't have no shipping industry. People don't think. A ship that sails on the sea cannot sail upriver. That's why when the ships came, they dropped anchor way offshore, lowered boats, and rowed to shore. You can't put no ocean going ship in the river.
Nope.
Hey,
So if
go ahead.
this is where it gets good. If these people, and they were warring and committing crimes, if these people were warring, one tribe warring against the other, and I know this for sure, the Aka movement, my wife is Ghanaian. If you lost, you was captured.
Exactly.
And you was required to pay restitution because you don't tore up stuff, you don't burn crops, corn, you don't burn huts, kill people, rape women, bash babies up against rocks. You either had to pay restitution or guess what? They was gonna kill you. You know why it makes sense to kill them? Because you don't want them coming back next month doing the same damn thing over. Because if you try it once and don't succeed, you learn from it.
Right.
You ain't gonna make that mistake next time. So they would either kill or sold in order to recover the losses that they occurred.
Interesting.
And when they sold to other African merchants who sold them into the merchants who had set up outposts on the banks of the ocean, where they received merchandise, which includes slaves.
Very interesting.
Well, yeah, there was slavery going on in Africa.
So it was commerce.
So that's how this stuff works.
Right. It was a matter of commerce. Yeah.
Oh, and wait a minute. Hang on. They got a thing there in those countries, in those cultures, that's called the sins of the father. Follow the son.
Mm.
Well, who is the son of those Africans that was brought here? It's black people today.
Right.
You technically owe for what your ancestors, the fathers, the sons, done when they was on the continent to other tribes. Think.
Interesting.
The debt don't go away.
Right. Interesting. So, right. So it wasn't like someone just came home and ripped you out of kidnapped you. You were part of commerce. You were a commodity, basically.
What city you stay in? If I could ask, I'm gonna give you an example.
I'm in New Jersey.
New Jersey. There's a city called Patterson there in New Jersey, isn't there?
They call it
And
a
there's
third
Trenton,
world
right?
country. They call Patterson a third world country. It's so bad. But keep going.
Well, wait a minute. Hang on. Get what I'm getting ready to say. And Trenton, New Jersey.
It's bad down there too.
How in the heck could somebody go into Trenton and gather 200 people and march them to Patterson without somebody along the way trying to stop them?
Right.
Unless they didn't give a doggone damn. So that when people say that you got these trade routes in Ghana, you got 17 interior slave markets, or markets where slaves were sold, and you got 25 forts along the ocean, slave markets on the ocean. So when you march somebody, say from northern Ghana up around the Burkina Faso, or even from Kumasi down to the coast, which is around St. Augustine, around Dutch Comenda, you got to go through towns. You got to go through Winneba. You got to go through a whole bunch of towns. Well, if people didn't want this to happen, when they had not stopped it,
correct.
They didn't have no AK-47s back then. They had musket loaders, one shot.
Right.
And it wasn't whites that was marching them down. It was African merchants.
And well, to your point, Patterson and Trenton, it's about 55, 60 mile distance. So that's
all right. They were doing some walking back then.
No,
if you look on the map and you can see it.
To your point that you wouldn't walk that far, like to your point is, how could you walk that far without being attacked and destroyed when you're in some?
You're absolutely right, because you got to go through towns.
Right.
You ain't gonna be going through no thick brush. You're gonna be walking down roads where everybody else traveled. So what I'm trying to say is that the stuff that they talk about, I mean, I say the popular narratives on what happened and so forth, and trying to blame just only Europeans. That practice was going on way before Europeans. Well, they had sacrifices. They were sacrificing human beings. Cannibalism was going on. All those things. You know why? Because they're human beings. Human beings everywhere was doing something that you could look upon today and say it was wrong, but it wasn't illegal then.
So it's interesting. You're saying that a lot of information is poorly reported. So in chaos before I get to you, I want to give a report. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to just tell you about this. I'm going to actually show you. So let's look at
share that knowledge, sir.
Yeah, I'm going to share this. So what I'm sharing is the number of people shot to death by police in the United States from 2017 to 2021 by race. And if you look at here, white race, 457 in 2017, and only less than half of that blacks. But when you watch the media, you would never know that more whites are killed by the police than blacks.
Well, you know something else? All this hoopla about police brutality and everything that we hear. And blacks wanting to have, I ain't saying all blacks, I'm talking about it like BLM, Black Lives Matter, and so on like that. But they asking and begging for something that they already got. And you know why that is? Because police departments in a municipality are employees, and the people of the municipality are the employer. Ferguson, Missouri. We all heard about Ferguson and Mike Brown.
Right.
Ferguson was majority black. When Mike Brown got killed, it was about 67, 70% black. Blacks moved out in Ferguson from St. Louis in the 60s. So they were escaping crime that was going on in Walnut Park, O'Fallon Park, in DeVille, in other areas. Now, when blacks moved in, whites started moving out.
Right.
For whatever reason. Blacks moved too. Blacks flee too, but you never hear about that. Blacks have fled Ferguson. The ones that moved out there years ago, decades ago, they have fled Ferguson too because of a crime. But here's the point I'm getting at. Blacks are 67, 70% of the population. The police department had 53 police officers, 52 were white, one was black. At any time, the people in that community could have changed that. They could have changed it. At any time, they could have changed the mayor. Matter of fact, Mike Brown's mother ran for city council. Her name is Leslie McFadden. And blacks didn't come out and vote for her. They re-voted Mayor Knowles in the office. Of course, he's gone now. Missouri's Constitution says this: powers of the people over internal affairs, Constitution and form of government. This was written in 1875. It says that the people of this state have the inherent, sole, and exclusive right to regulate the internal government, that's a town like Ferguson, and police thereof. So they could have changed the police and had them to do anything they felt that they wanted. They could have them wear pink shirts and lime green pants if that was the uniform that they wanted them to wear. And if you look at other municipalities, it's the same thing. People control the police. So why come these folks, if you have a problem with the police, why come you're not changing it? Where they would have a better relationship behavior when they come in contact with the public, if you think that's a problem. But what they want now, they want Joe Biden, which is proved to be disastrous. People should have just looked at him. He's been a racist for the last 47 years. They want the White House to tell the police what to do. Well, the White House don't have no control over the police. Federal government has no control over local municipalities. The state do. You got 50 states, which is effectively 50 different countries as states' rights.
Right. I listen, I get that, but what I'm getting at is what we hear in the media. You would think that no one else is killed by the police. And if you look at the Hispanic population is larger than the black population, and less Hispanics. If you look at this, less Hispanics are killed by the police than blacks are. And I assume the Asian numbers are so small it's not even worth reporting. They have an other and unknown, but. I mean,
Asians and African immigrants. Well, you know, I'm gonna tell you what the problem. You got a problem.
What I'm getting at, it's the whites that are killed by
the news don't report it. That's what it is.
Yeah,
the news don't report it.
Hold on. What I'm saying is the news is not reporting it, but it's nearly twice as many whites are killed by the police than blacks.
Yeah, well, absolutely. You're absolutely right. They don't report that. So and one of the big things why come you have so many blacks that you have in the culture in these families, and I ain't saying all because apparently I know it doesn't go on in my family. I know families that don't. But you got a disrespect for authority. You got disrespect for authority in the house. It goes to the schools. Then it works its way out into the public.
Go.
Absolutely. Chaos View, what are your thoughts on this topic?
Oh, man. Larry Elder covered something about this, and I just is the police are less likely to shoot blacks, and I can't remember the whole reason, but yeah, it's a very telling thing. It doesn't meet the narrative that has been getting pushed for the past couple of decades that America's racist all around and we're founded in racism and all this other stuff. that the mainstream media just keeps perpetuating. And it comes down to personal choices, man. I mean, I was brought up to respect police, but also fear them for what they could do to me. So, and believe me, I get just as nervous when I see them red and blues flickering in my rearview window. And it's a matter of how you just how you carry yourself when you're dealing with them. I'm very respectful when I deal with them, and if I'm getting arrested, I don't resist, because the instance you try and like pull away from them while they're trying to cuff you, that's labeled resisting arrest, and whatever happens to you after that is what happens. Um, um, if you watch these videos, they don't shoot them right away. Try and, but when there's no other choice, if they're a violent criminal, and it's going to sound harsh, oh well, that's one less violent criminal in the world to deal with, and one less tax burden for us to have to deal with too, because the prisons collect taxes from those people that sit in. It's all a big corporate scheme for all of that.
Yeah, prison labor is basically like slave labor. So
Oh yeah, and
Well, you lose your freedoms when you're in prison.
oh hell yeah.
You don't have
Well,
freedom
believe it or not, they have it pretty easy compared to, like, I mean, 3 squares a day. They get a little few hours of sun. I mean, they got a cakewalk. I mean, the prison itself collects a tax on each individual, and it's yeah. Well, a better way to.
You ever heard that some people commit crimes in September so they can go in jail to spend the winter where it's warm and they got food?
Mm-hmm. As long as they got shelter, food, and water, those are the 3 basic needs. Food, water, and shelter. The rest is, but shit, they live better than some people out there. They got TVs in there, video games, computers. They have phones and stuff. It depends on the prison you're in, but a lot of them have it a hell of a lot better than some of the people on the outside.
Not me, they don't.
But if you look at some of the cases that has caused the most disruption and outcry and marching and protest, looting and stuff, you take those one by one, and you could see that all that could have been avoided. It's what you call cause and effect.
Sir.
And Trayvon Martin, 16 years old. I taught my children that if they're walking down the street and a strange person is walking behind you, you run. You run to some place where it's safe. A store, a gasoline station, or knock on somebody's house. You don't go back and try to fight somebody.
No,
I mean, think about
that's just gonna, yeah, because God knows what they're gonna be armed, and then you're really screwed. And it's unfortunate what happened to him.
Right.
And the funny thing is, Zimmerman wasn't even a white dude; he was like a Hispanic dude.
Oh, I'm running in the store.
That part really tripped me out. It's like they say he's a white dude. That dude's Hispanic. He's like, what?
Now, we ain't saying that there ain't no bad police officers out there.
Oh no,
They had walked up to cops and we was talking. And I said, "Oh, by the way, I'm carrying a pistol." He said, "That's all right. I wish everybody did." To that effect. But they are human beings, and most importantly, they employees of the municipality that they work for.
Yeah.
If you don't have enough civic responsibility to get involved with your employees, no matter if it's the landscaping, if it's the trash pickup, police in this case, or whoever, then you're not carrying out the duties that you're supposed to have. Because ultimately, if something goes down and lawsuits are filed, you're going to end up paying as a citizen. It's going to come out of the revenue of the town. Yeah. Right now, Ferguson is on the brink of causing bankruptcy.
We'll be filing for bankruptcy in the next few years.
Now, a solution. Host, is it okay if we talk about a solution?
Well, wait, before we get dropped, let me just say one other thing. So I'm going to coin this term called intellectual cannibalism, and that is one thing that happens in the Black community. So, if you have a GPA of 3.2 or higher, the Black community will ridicule you. I mean, it's the only community in the world that ridicules its own for being intelligent, which makes no sense. So if you're going to have any kind of economic power, one of the things you will depend on is the intellectual capital, the ability to get things done and organize people and invent things, and that you deal not solely, but a big part of that happens from your people who have the intellectual wherewithal to make things happen and connect dots. However, if you ridicule and shame those people, you're squandering them, and you're actually cannibalizing your best chances of survival.
Crabs in a pot, sir.
I think it's worse than that, because you are killing off your people who can actually support you to climb out of anything.
That a perfect analogy. Crabs in a pot. It'd be the perfect analogy. You know, crabs are trying to escape a boiling pot of water, and you got the others pulling you back down. It's just dumb people keeping you down. That's part of the like no child left behind policy that they enacted back in the 90s. It was to lower the bar so the dumb people could actually keep up with the smart people. I don't know if I'm allowed to use that word because dumb's a pretty harsh word.
I think it's
Well, yeah, they put
I mean,
you.
it's a pro. I'll be shamed for dumb people shaming. You know.
But yes, what the problem? You know, you look at inner city schools, and I'm not blaming no children. I don't want nobody claiming that. But once again, it's the people. People talking about, well, they don't teach Black history. Well, according to state law, you can have whatever you want in your school district. Missouri, for instance, if they notwithstanding the provision of Section 160.514, the State Board of Education and the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education shall not be authorized to mandate and are expressly prohibited from mandating the curriculum, textbooks, or other instructional materials to be used in public schools. Well, what that is basically saying is that white folks can't tell you Black folks in your school district what books, curriculum, text, instruction material to have. That's entirely up to you.
Oh dear.
So when you hear these loudmouths saying, well, they won't let us teach history, they won't let, but that's not true. You got the power to do whatever you want to with your children. As long as you meet state minimum standards, they got to be able to read, write, and do arithmetic. But if you want your children at the 6th grade to be doing college work, you can do it. But guess what? It ain't happening. Like another thing, school choice. Well, a parent can take their child and put them wherever they want, and the money follows the child. Because apparently they're not being educated in the environment that they're in, like in Detroit, where 60 Minutes done a documentary on a school building and called it a national disgrace. But the thing is that you do have some children in the classroom that comes from functional families. They, albeit they're poor, but they are functional. And we know that exists. So why do those children coming from functional family have to sit in a classroom where they're not being challenged and all day long is nothing more than just a bunch of fun going on? Their parents should be able to take them and put them someplace else. But guess what? Your gatekeepers like the NAACP, your Black politicians, they don't want that. The teachers unions, NEA, National Educational Association, AFT, American Federation of Teachers, control your politicians at not only the state level, but also the CBC, the Congressional Black Congress, at the federal level. And they fight that viciously because those administrators, principals, superintendents being paid $350,000 a year in a school district that may only have 20,000, 23,000 students. They don't want that because they're making money. Look at Chicago teachers. And we ain't coming back to school until COVID is gone.
And they say they ain't making enough money.
Hey, Samuel, what are your thoughts on this topic? You hear me, Samuel? SW. What are your thoughts?
Good evening. Can you hear me fairly well?
I can. What are your thoughts?
All right.
You hear me, Samuel? SW.
Oh, let me cut you off in the background. I know you got some feed.
Yeah,
Good
yeah.
evening. Can you hear me fairly well? Oh shoot! I hit the off button. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All right. Can you hear me now?
the echo is gone.
Yes, sir.
All righty. My opinion. Let's just say I'm gonna take social media and life in general. Most of my obstacles and opposition in Black people. When I'm on social media, most people who block me are usually Black women and sometimes Black men. We blame everybody for everything except for reality. You say anything that people don't hear because they're guilty of, they will shut you down, speaking upon the Black community. But then we just point out every other race except our own. Ain't no one holding no one back from doing what the hell they want to do as far as a Black man. But we sit here, and I think we've been conditioned and brainwashed to think that I can't even speak. I'm going to take that back. Black men, in my opinion, are very weak because they sit here and make excuses for everything up under the sun. No one's stopping any person, especially a Black man, from doing what he wants to do, if he really wants to do. But we'll sit here and make excuses to the time and blame this person, this sets, that sets. But ain't no one held me back from my personal opinion but Black people. They're the first to shut me down. And anything I try to do, they get mad because I tell the truth. They sit here and say who hurt you or the people you deal with or any excuse up under the sun. And personally, I'm sick of excuses. Any man can do what he wants to do. Can't no one stop you from doing what you want to do.
As long as it's
That's
within the
just,
confines of the law, then everything Gucci, right?
they'll sit and talk church and whatever up under the sun, except for reality. It's always excuses. I'm not rich, I'm not poor, I'm cool. But the thing is, I've never made an excuse for anything. Never. And I mean never. But all I hear is excuses. Anytime I talk to Black men, young or old, they think something wrong with me because of the way I speak. Too blunt. And I always hear who hurt you or what's wrong with you or something's wrong with you. Well, basically, look at Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. Their main position was Black people. They were the first ones to try to stop them. They finally overcame the so-called people, Black people. Then they became heroes and geniuses and legends. But these main people are trying to hold them back. But then they want to blame other races for their shortcomings. I just want your opinion on what I just said, because to me, I'm just out of stupidity and blaming everyone for everything except for the person in the mirror, whether it be man or woman.
Yeah, what you're talking about, responsibility.
Accountability.
Yeah. So forget about, just take race. Just look at the human paradigm. I don't care what country you're in. There are things that people don't want to be responsible for, right? People sabotage certain behavior. At the same time, just tell me if I'm saying your name right. Is Tianki? That's the right way to say it, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is.
So Tianki brought up an important point. And the point was, you talk about being responsible. it's not that whites just walked into Africa and said, "Come, you're going with me to America to be a slave." Those people were most likely the poorer and the weaker tribes. They lost, and they were part of commerce, right? So they were traded. So no one's being honest about these things. So
Actually, a little brief, if you don't mind. It was actually the Spaniards and the Portuguese that were coming down into Africa and going in between. I can't remember if it's King George or King Henry, the dude that started the transatlantic slave trade. It was actually the Portuguese and the Spaniards that were going down there, and they were working with other Africans. And there's more to it. They were working with the other Africans to capture tribesmen and the tribes. Yeah, I think that's right. The people down there.
People.
And yeah, the people down there. And that was all because the Roman Catholic the Pope had deemed them as unhuman because they weren't cultured. They lacked culture. Like they were basically barbarians and savages. And as they progressed into Africa, they had actually learned that there were some cultured Africans, and it slowly, and it started the whole stopping slavery thing, because slavery actually stopped. We were the last ones to America was the last ones to fight the whole slave thing. It had already started to stop across the pond, if I recall. In most areas.
1807.
Yeah.
So what I'm actually getting at is this whole thing around being responsible for things that happen, and being honest about things that have happened historically. And so if you create a culture of not being responsible, that tends to create a culture that permeates through everything. It's not going to be just one thing. And as long as you can blame someone else, victim is a very powerful strategy. It gets you, if you can prove that you're a victim, you can prove that you had nothing to do with it. And it's always someone else, someone else's fault, and you were just a victim of circumstances. And if you have that as a culture, and other people start to support your victimhood, they actually disempower you. Because as long as you can sell your victim story, you can get off the hook from doing anything about it. And then it kind of goes to what Chaos for you were saying. So if someone is actually going to step out of that victim story, you don't want them to do it, because then that's going to make everyone else look bad. So it's like you keep the narrative going. It's like, someone said BS, bullshit makes the world go round. So as long as you can keep selling the story and people buy into it, no one has to do anything. I mean, in that kind of mindset, I mean, all you have to do is look inside of a corporation. If you're a really high performer and you come in and start working really hard, and the people there are mediocre, they're all of a sudden going to start looking bad. So this is just a problem. I think Black America has almost tried to put a monopoly on that kind of mindset to stop them from having to build their own economy. And I think the 60s, the 60s
Marxism.
Unfortunate, Tianki, is that that whole affirmative action and all of that, really, that while it seemed like it was going to help, in the end, it was those were nails in the coffin. The civil rights movement.
Well, another thing too. Now we have to be careful when you say African American. You got to say some, because if not, you ain't politically correct. But on the other hand, there's a lot of good things going on coming out of Black society, especially with the education. Now, even though it's your historical Black colleges, where you only have 5 with a graduation rate at any one time above 50% in 6 years, because that means that they're going to pay 50% more for their tuition. But you have an organization like the National Society of Black Engineers, which started back in the 1970s. And they tried to get more African American youth involved in STEM programs. And the results are there because I have, and I work with the St. Louis because my grandson is an engineer at LSU. Well, he graduated last month, December, but month before last, well, in December of 2020. But I was at their national convention. They have national conventions where employees, corporations come in one location. In 2017, 2018, and 2019. In 2017 and 2018, Northwood Grumman in Mississippi hired over 400 young STEM graduates 2 years in a row. And in 2019, Lockheed Martin hired over 400 that year, not including the other hundreds that was being hired by other corporations that was there. Anything from Google and Amazon, ExxonMobil, Chevron, Shell, NASA, CIA, FBI, Caterpillar. But here's what this other loudmouth who think that blacks in America is a separate nation. You know that they hated that these young people are going to work for these white corporations. And they say all they're doing is furthering white supremacy. I asked one, I said, what the hell you got for? They can't answer. They can't answer.
They're just jealous and
You know what, Ted?
what they have.
Just like Donald Trump had a black summit at the White House, and you had about 300 or 400 young black college students there. Well, hell, they was criticized. Al Sharpton came out and called them everything but the Son of God and Holy Mary.
You know what, Ted?
They wanted to join on to his administration. They was called coons. Look what they called Steve Harvey and everything else.
That dude's just a race hustler.
Ted, can you hear me?
Said every obstacle he had looked like him.
So what are you saying, Samuel?
What I'm saying is that let's take Steve Harvey. I don't know to sell out in my opinion. He's phony. Let's take Farrakhan. He did not like Malcolm X. I'm not gonna get too deep into that. He didn't like Malcolm X because Malcolm X focused on. It's like when a black person says he believes, he becomes the option to other blacks. It's like when I'm out and about, when I talk to people, especially I talk to black men, black women, to me, I have no competition for them because they ain't about nothing. But when I talk to the black men, they see me as weird, something wrong with him. They agree, but they're afraid to say they agree because they're punks, they're cowards. And it has nothing to do with age, it's all ages. I've spoken about black men of all ages. When I speak to them, they get scary. They start looking around to see who else is around when we're talking. It's something wrong, and it would not be it cannot be reversed. In my opinion, it cannot be reversed. These was like when I speak honest. I talk about wives, girlfriend, bras, whatever, men, and they agree, but they won't comment on it because they're cowards.
Okay,
this is my opinion, but it's my.
Hold on. So let's generate a conversation like that now, right? So there's a conversation that can be had that will sound like a pipe dream, far-fetched, and a bad idea. So if I were to look at industries, right? So one of the things that hurts the black community is they don't own anything, and you know it's great to own a house, but if you don't own natural resources, you really don't own anything. And this is what I'm getting to, this word being responsible, right? So if you want to be responsible for creating a vibrant community, right? So just take out this word racism and look at it as group economics. So if you look at the white community and someone gets into the oil industry, the first person they're going to hire are their close friends and relatives. And then those people are going to hire their close friends and relatives. And that's just in their group where they live around, where they hang around, who they eat with, will be most likely people who look like them. And there's, as you were saying, Tianki, there's nothing illegal. There's nothing wrong with that. There just isn't. Your friends and your family, right? So, but
Shit, that's how I got my last job, was through one of my friends from high school.
right. So what you'll do is you'll create your group, your tribe is creating economic viability so your group can survive.
Mhm.
Now, if you
Okay, I hear what you're saying, but the fact is,
I'm not.
sorry.
Hold on.
What I'm saying is, if you depend on another group for your survival, then you put yourself at a disadvantage. And you
But
can't.
if you depend on your own group, they will shut you down.
Listen,
You look at black men who speak out and say what they really feel are canceled.
I understand what you're saying, and what I'm saying is, if this is where I keep getting back to the word responsibility. If you become responsible, so right now there's a culture of not being responsible in the Black community. And I understand there are people who are doing things, but when you talk about group economics and taking responsibility within the group so your group survives, that's a different conversation than going out to get a job. And I hear what Tianki's saying about large corporations hiring Black people, except that makes them responsible for another group so they can survive. And so Sam, what I'm saying is, if you cannibalize your most intelligent people because they have original ideas, your group will have a difficult time surviving, because every group, whether it's Chinese, Vietnamese, Irish, French, they depend on their most intelligent people to organize things, to invent things, to lead people, and to put things together. If you don't celebrate and acknowledge and reward your most brilliant people, you will have to depend on another group for survival. And if you depend on another group for survival, you are in trouble. They will feed you crumbs because they are going to take care of their friends and family first.
I fully agree.
That's what I said earlier.
Go ahead, Sam. I'm sorry.
You give a man a fish, you create a dependent, you teach that fool to fish, and he can feed himself.
Right.
But that's the point that I'm making. Blacks are the main ones holding blacks back. They blame everybody for what they're doing. It's like when I was in high school, I spoke up against a high school by myself. You know who was my opposition? My mother. She fought against me for speaking up for myself. Told me I need to be quiet, that I'm causing trouble. And I see the same thing. I'm almost 50 years old, and I'm still going through the same thing with Black people. But on top of I got the Asians and the white and everybody else jumping on top of me, because the other Blacks I look at, they turn their back and run away. So it's like, that's why I've never believed in racism, because my own racism has been with my so-called own Black people. They're the main ones who block me, who report me for speaking the truth. They get hurt by me speaking the truth. And that kills me, because I'm like, how you gonna sit here? They only worship sport figures and rappers and entertainers. Blacks are only known for entertaining the masses, acting, singing, rapping, whatever. That's all they're known for. They're not. Look at what's the dude named, the fat dude, the hustler, the so-called pastor preacher. What's his name? What's his name? Got the hat curls. Now he real skinny.
T.D. Jakes.
No. Don't get me started on him. Al Sharpton. He's a hustler. He be a mafia member. But Blacks believe it. I think it's like Blacks, it's something wrong with them, because they don't understand basis of common sense. They worship people who slam a basketball, or who get a touchdown, or who moonwalk. And it's stupid to me. You don't look at logic. Look at everyone black support. LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Michael Jackson. It's all entertainment. Malcolm X did. Martin Luther King did. Even though his personal life contradicted what he actually spoke, he's dead. People don't get appreciated until they die. By then, it's too late in the black community. Look at Tupac. I'm not going to speak on it. We had our own personal options. I knew Tupac personally, but we had our own issues. Nothing to do with me. It was his own feminine ways. So my thing is like this here. They need to stop blaming everyone and look at the person in the mirror. They can't correct that. They need to shut the hell up. Because I'm tired of them blaming everyone but the person in the mirror. And that's all I got to say on that.
Thank you. That's why I keep using the word responsibility. Tianki.
Well, you mentioned two people. Those sports athletes, blacks, you got black groups out here talking about reparation, trying to get reparation from the government and white businesses. But them athletes, the ones should be paying reparation. Let me tell you why. Look at all the young males that expended themselves. The parents had to take them to practice, buy equipment, had to transport them to games and tournaments. Look at all that went on just to produce a LeBron James and Kobe Bryant. They had to provide them with competition so that they could hone their skills. And out of all that, you got those two and maybe another handful. They're the ones that should be paying reparations. Let me tell you something else. I used to make my grandson do 100 math problems every day. And he also played baseball. I take him out the field and I hit him 100 ground balls. Well, he got good at that. He get up to 70, he started bearing down. 80, he's really bearing down. You know why? Because if he missed one, he had to start all over. Same thing with those math problems. If he missed one, he had to start all over. Matter of fact, I remember one time he went and told his mama, "Mama, Papa's making me start all over." You know what she told him? He made me do it too. Get back in there. You see black kids in the gym shooting 100 free throws in the gym, but they don't go home and do 100 math problems. See, something's wrong with that picture. There's something wrong with that picture. You have to prepare your child and expose them as much as you possibly can. You need to take your child and put them through the same trials as a football combine and a basketball camp to see what they're good at. Is they a running back, a wide receiver, a center? You have to do that with everything else to see what inner abilities that they have. Then you need to look and see what the future beholds. Then you try to direct them into that. Now, of course, it may be some changes along the way, but you got to have a starting point. Right now, we just let our children go to school, and when they get up to the 10th grade, they try to decide what they want to do. No, that should have been decided around the 4th grade, not the 10th grade. And another thing, we give these kids too many accolades, I think. They have tuxedos and a limousine when they graduate from preschool.
Dang.
Kindergarten.
What? I want some of that.
Come on now. Think about it. And that's in the culture. Now, that ain't all of them, but it's too many, I think. Because when you look at the data and you look at the high-paying professions like doctors, engineers, computer scientists, and so on, so on, so on, Black numbers in those professions do not equal their percentage in the entire population.
Right.
Get the other side.
And that's got to change. You would think.
See,
Ted,
there.
Ted,
Yes.
let's just say, like I said, I'm my age. This is a few years back. I had a few. I didn't go. I didn't enjoy going. I don't like people because they get on my damn nerves. But I would go out. They would pay me to go out with them because I would get stuff. I would get us free food, free drinks, VIP for free because I told them how to play. You know, we cool. They got it finally, but I had to go through so much to understand because we're always concerned with booty. It's all they thought about was booty and money. They didn't nothing else. So when I would lay the game out to them, they'd be like, "Damn, he's serious. He know what the hell he's doing." But I had to do so much, and that was just with 2 dudes. So I'm like, if I'm just an average person talking to average people who are above average, that's why I mess with them. But they're still average in my mindset. And the opposition they gave me wasn't really hard, but it was like, prove it. So when I proved it, yes, them 2 dudes, 3 got what I was coming from, but there are millions of people out there. I'm not on the media. I'm not a celebrity. I'm just an average person, but I had common sense, knew how to make things work. But when we went out, they could not believe what I was able to accomplish by just being me. No, I'm not rich. I don't have Mercedes and Lamborghinis in the park, but I knew common sense. I knew how to manipulate. I knew how to get people to think how you wanted them to think by being honest, basically. But they couldn't believe that telling the truth could get to where I was at. That's the problem, because in my opinion, Black males don't understand how to be who you are and believe in who you are. I never made excuses anything that haven't done. Never. But I've still got it done against all odds. Am I in the media? No, because I slam a ball when I cross the finish line. It's like Blacks don't understand we're entertainment to society. All we are known for is acting, singing, and sports. We're not known for anything else. And that's just my opinion, but what I see, we are not known. We are only brought up when it comes to elections, and that's it.
Or when
And
a person shot.
it just pisses me off that Black men, from my personal opinion, are only concerned with fashion, booty,
Materialism.
and stupid stuff. Not known for anything logical. And anytime a Black person is logical, he's put down or killed.
So here's a challenge to what you're saying, and Tianki, if I combine what the 2 of you have said, so there's a mindset. So think of it this way. I'll use a different example to illustrate. If a person is 100 pounds overweight, you can give them the best diet in the world, and they're not going to lose weight. They'll lose some weight. They'll lose weight for 30 days, maybe the next 60 days, and then they'll start putting weight back on. They'll lose some weight again, and then they'll put it back on. And after a year, they're either at the same weight or they're above. And a lot of people don't realize it's not the diet and it's not your body type. It is the mindset and how people see themselves. So that person who's 100 pounds overweight, and Oprah's a good example of this. If they drop a lot of weight and get
90 seconds
and get down to a weight that is healthy, if they don't see themselves as being healthy, they haven't addressed why they gained weight in the first place. And if you don't address that mindset, the best diet in the world will not help them. It may be a temporary patch that you'll see will eventually, that patch will fail and they'll gain weight again. So if we look at the Black community,
60 seconds
there's a mindset that isn't being addressed. And so, Tianki, you talked about understanding if someone has a capacity, some capabilities for mathematics, for engineering, for basketball, for the law, for medicine, and you can see that, you know, where this child is showing some interest and some natural abilities at a very young age. If we don't create environments to support that, to nurture and grow it. And so, Samuel, what you're saying is that there's a mindset that's being self-perpetuated in the community, and no one's disrupting that mindset. You know, they say if you shot a rocket into space, it'll perpetually go in that direction until something knocks it off of its course. And the Black community is on a course, and there's nothing being done to disrupt the course that it's on. So no one's taking that mindset. And, you know, Tianki, I hear what you're saying, and saying that it's not all Blacks. Where the gap is for me is what I said. There's no responsibility for the group. So whether you look at athletes, you look at successful businessmen, most people don't know that up until about a year and a half ago, the CEO of American Express was a Black man. Most people don't know that. Ken Chenault is his name. So whether it's the athletes, the entertainers, the Jay-Z's of the world, P. Diddy, there is enough money in the Black community to actually start looking at acquiring natural resources. See, if you buy an oil well, for example, what you do by owning that oil well is you can go to the Black universities and the engineers and the geologists and create jobs in the Black community. And then you create oil refineries, which now you create a lot more jobs. And then once you refine the oil, you make petroleums and plastics and motor oil and gasoline, and you can create gas stations, you can create retail stores. Then you vertically own an industry. So you own the oil well, you drill it, and then you start looking at iron ore mines so that you can start manufacturing your own machinery to drill oil and drill in mines. If you're not, that's a different mindset than getting a great job and bragging that I work at Northrop Grumman, or wherever else. Then, and I understand there's no structure, there's no business structure, economic structure to employ these people who work for these defense contractors or ExxonMobil. If you look at the oil industry itself, only 9% of the jobs are held by Black Americans. And you know what? You can't blame it on racism, because those are high-paying jobs. Even those guys who work on the rigs, like, start off at minimum at $50 an hour. Who are you going to give that to? You're going to give that to the guy who's marrying your sister, your brother, your uncle, your father.
You know what?
If Blacks don't start thinking about owning an industry, all the rest of the things you're saying are irrelevant, and they will self-perpetuate.
But let's look at it like this here. Take last year. I saw so many posts online about the first Black-owned grocery store, the first Black-owned, etc. Every race has been done this a long time ago. But when a Black finally gets a grocery store or a gas station, it becomes news. And they don't understand insulting that. They don't understand that's petty as hell. It's a damn it's a gas station. But they go head over heels to celebrate mediocrity. And when they sit here and speak out about it, they get mad at me and say, it's something wrong with me, when I'm telling them, you got a gas station, you want some kind of special trophy for that, for other races did a long time ago. You know what? You speak the truth, they hate you for speaking the truth. When I sit here and say, I look out for myself. If I can't take care of myself, I can't do nothing for nobody else. But they act like I'm supposed to take care of everybody else before you take care of yourself. But when you tell yourself, they find some kind of fault in that and put you down and speak on everybody. Let's look at the weave and the big ass wheels and the weed. I speak to so many young black today. All they talk about is women and weed, women and getting high. That's all they talk about. And you try to speak differently than that. It's something wrong with you.
I understand. You've made that clear. I got it. We got that. So I'm generating.
Let me say something pertaining to that.
Hold on, Tianki. I just created a new conversation about owning natural resources, owning an industry, and creating jobs within that industry.
Yeah, I want to talk about that.
But that's not done with black people. That's with other races of people.
Hold on, Sam. Let Tianki finish. Go ahead, Tianki.
That's not as easy to do as people talk about.
I know that.
I own a business. My business was in steel erection. I started doing it when I was 19. I was then working in the union. After 20 years, I started my own company. We put up buildings like the ones that fell down in New York during 9/11. Now, that ain't for everybody to do. And when people go to work for a corporation that's in any particular field, they are learning the ins and outs of that business. And then maybe by chance, they may have an inkling that this is something I want to do. And they've learned it because when you're working for Exxon, you're basically running a minute business of their total operations. And that's how they work. My grandson is a gas and petroleum engineer, and he's doing his second major in business with an energy miner. Heck, he's getting calls every week from Chevron, Shell, Exxon. He interned for Exxon last year for a while. So if you got the skills, they want you. You go on NSBE website right now. They have at least 11,000 jobs in the STEM field. National Society of Black Engineers website. And they're not jobs that's been up there for 10 or 15 years. They was recently posted.
I understand that.
So if you get your children, the young people, and give them the skills, so when they come out of high school and they go to higher education, they can hold their weight and not be put into remedia where they have to go to a community college for 2 years. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. Like I say, everybody's not going to be able to do certain things, but there's nothing wrong with taking your child through the trials and tribulations and seeing what they have an inner ability to do. If you can't do it, there's organizations out there that can do it. Sliven, their tutoring service, they can do that for you for a minimal fee.
But all these organizations black. There are other races of people who helping blacks, but blacks call them racist when they're trying to help blacks. They don't have to help blacks, but blacks try to get involved. They get called racist, and they get called sellouts.
Stephen Hightower was a janitor, cleaning bathroom. He decided he wanted to start a petroleum company. He ranks number 10 in Black Enterprise top 100 black businesses. His revenue is about $350 million a year. You got Dave Stewart with Worldwide Technology. His revenue in his business is over $13 billion a year. So you got them there. Can you expand? Well, they would probably want to expand. You would have to have a relationship with them and say, well, we can do this, what you're doing here, and I could probably manage it or whatever, or be a partner over there. That's how those things happen. Janice Bryant has a business and she's got 18,000 employees. Well, she ain't gonna leave that herself, but would she want to expand into doing school lunch programs in inner city schools? Probably so. But you would have to know what you're doing, then be able to communicate with her and partner on with her.
But see, now you said something important.
Another
See,
thing too, Mr.
it's
Keandre.
it's more prestigious to get a job at Exxon or Northrop Grumman than it is to get at the black guy's oil drilling company. And see, there's where the problem starts.
A job is a job. I clean a church for a living, but they pay me good though. I can't complain. But I also I work hard for what they give me, and they show it by what they do for me.
Right. I get that. I get
Work ethic, and that's a big thing. Having a strong work ethic. My dad instilled a very strong work ethic in me at an early age. He said, if you want something, you gotta go work for it. And if I wanted a toy or something, he would find a chore, and I would have to do that chore, and then I would get whatever I wanted.
Okay. Let's speak on the youth, the future of black men. They're being told if they're not laying down pipe, they don't have big wheels and fancy cars, that they ain't nothing. They're being told,
stupid.
cater,
I know.
give that money to people who got nothing for them in order to be considered successful.
Sam, I just generated a new conversation about owning.
Okay, my apologies.
No, but I mean, we get all that. You've said it. You've said it 5 different ways. So you know, if we're talking about,
had a question.
If we're talking about, look, if there's, it's about group economics, and that is the thing that people have to really realize. And if your group hasn't created the structures to sustain itself, you will depend on some other group for your survival. And you can tell me all the things about how difficult it is and how hard it is. And yes, I understand that. You need capital, you need intellectual property, you need hands, you need organization to make that happen. It's not impossible because it's being done. And Nigerians are in Texas getting into the oil industry because they understand the oil industry in their own country. So they've jumped in. Tianki, are you familiar with the Nigerians that are jumping in the oil industry in Texas?
They're gonna go back to Africa.
Well, yeah, my name is Bianchi Bangolia. I'm part Yoruba.
Okay,
I know it very well.
So you know that. So they're coming.
Dangoki is opening up offices in New York. So, but see, here's the thing: Nigerians work with Nigerians. Just because they're skin black, you're not gonna see them reaching out to native Black Americans unless it's something that a deal or something. You know, I worked with some on the design of some big projects like power generating stations in one of the states in Nigeria, seaports, and large poultry farms. But that's the way they are. I mean,
listen, and they should, because this is about group economics. That is the thing that people have.
But which group? Well, you say, so which group? The majority
Nigerians work with their own group.
Yeah,
but the point I'm making is that
benefit the country.
Let's be real here. The average young black man is being told that if he's not laying it down or have a fancy car, he ain't about nothing. He's not being told to do anything that's really productive. He's been told to be basic.
Sam, you got any sons?
He's going into the meta of everything. I think is what he's going about. It is part of the problem that's keeping Black people down is that whole materialistic lifestyle bullshit that you see perpetuated in like hip hop and all of that stuff, the fast cars and big rims and all that stuff. It's all a stupid status thing is what that is, and it's a stupid thing to follow, in my opinion too. But
technically, it's not, because if those are the only conversations people hear. See, right now, here's a perfect example of why that's the only thing they're going to hear. When you start talking about something else, we keep going back to what they're doing instead of being able to talk about some other possibility.
Well, we have to be realistic, man. We have to be realistic of what's really going on.
Cut the cancer out to kind of and cut the cancer out and guide back in the correct direction instead of the cancerous
Tell you,
direction.
when I go out, if I'm who I really am, women, especially black women and men, have no interest because they can't step up to the plate. They start talking about me and they don't want to talk to me because they can't relate. They cannot relate to what I'm trying to go. So when I get bait with them, then they get it, but I got to start talking stupid for them to comprehend.
See, you are running into people. You got to find the right people to be around.
I've
with
been around different people, but the point I'm making, most people who get it are elder. They're elder and they dead or dying off. The younger people don't get it. The old people who got it, they're dying, dead or dying off. I'm trying to speak on the youth of black men who don't get it because all they see is entertainment, rapping, jewelry, and cars. The few who try to go forward get chastised by their own people and called a sellout because they're trying to do
Sam,
something they're not used to.
do you understand that we're not having that discussion here? Do you understand that this is a different pond? Do you understand that?
I do and I don't.
Great. So what I'm asking you to distinguish is this conversation is not about who gets the most ass, who's got the best car, we're talking about generating a completely new conversation in which is
okay, I can get you with you on that. But the people who are in charge of it are not black. Allowing blacks in to prosper, and then blacks call racist.
Sam, when you get around those people, you need to be prepared to engage in the conversation.
But what I'm saying, I get what you're saying. But what I'm saying is that these people who are not black, who allow blacks into the industry, are called racist when they're trying to help blacks to get to what can be to help. But then they're chastised by blacks and called racist when they're helping blacks, because blacks ain't helping blacks. It's other races that are helping blacks to become better. But those same people are called racist.
Sam, so here's the question. If you go into a different pond where they're having higher level conversations, what are you going to talk about when you get there?
Well, you're going to speak on what you feel and what you know. But what I'm saying is that they're still called racist by blacks when they're the ones helping blacks.
Who cares? When you get to the people who can have the kinds of conversations you're talking about, what are you going to do when you get there? Are you going to start speaking? Are you going to understand?
He's going to handle his business. Speaking on racism, which means he's going to handle his business. He or she when they get there, but they're still being pulled back by blacks calling him a sellout for trying to get there.
So who right here, out of all the people here speaking to you are pulling you back and calling you different, weird, or racist? Who's doing that now?
I can not here. I'm just speaking as what I experienced and what I've seen.
So will you experience what's happening right here, right now? Because those people that you're talking about are not here, and they're technically right now irrelevant.
Okay, I got your point. I got you right there.
Start creating a new conversation, they'll have nothing else to follow. Someone's got to create a new example. You follow me?
I get you there. But the point I'm making, when the man tries to make an example, he's pushed back and held back by the people who he is supposed to have his back.
Well, okay, can you?
Who cares what other people think? You do you.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's the point that I'm making.
Sam,
that's what you should be taught.
Sam, do you see that you're actually being one of those people in this conversation right now?
No, I'm just speaking my mind. It may be. I can't say for a fact. I'm just being honest.
That the conversation we're having here isn't about what they have on the street.
Okay, I get that.
Leave the
I'm gonna
streets.
get out of here. I want to comment
The
on one
streets will
more.
devour
No,
itself.
I gotta go. Your show is over anyway. But
Yeah. I
on this bill that you hear these buzzwords today, like white nationalism and white supremacy.
Ugh.
See, white supremacy is when I look at it. It's when you look at certain industries like offshore oil well drilling, equity financing, leverage buyouts, boycotts, and sanctions. More often than not, the face behind those are white. My industry is steel erection in St. Louis and Southern Illinois. Majority of the other contractors were white. Guess what I done? I went in and got into the business myself, and I started taking pieces of their pie to create my slice of the pie.
Right.
You compete against them. That's what it's all about. You compete against them.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I'll see you guys later on. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you, man. Take care. Thanks for joining us.
Uh-oh.
So, who said "uh-oh"? Is that you, K?
Yeah, I got a text from work. We're shut down tomorrow because it's snowing like hell and snowing like hell here.
Okay. All right. So here's the conversation, Sam, is, and I do understand, right? So whether you look at slavery or commerce, or you look at NAACP, you look at even the athletes and the entertainers, at some point there is a collaboration of different races that who help put the whole pieces of the puzzle together, right? So you need to be able to work with people. And we live in a global community right now. And you can look at China as a group or a tribe. And Vietnam is their own tribe. Look at what Korea is doing. Mexico, all of these, India, Ireland, they all create within their group, they create advantages for businesses to want to do business with their group.
But they have support from the group.
Listen, man, if you don't know how to find the people who will support you, then you have to be responsible for that. Because right now you have a group right here who can support you, and you keep talking about the people who don't belong in the group. Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? Someone has to build the platform. So in Ireland, here in New York, there were some laws that can negatively affect the financial firms in New York. And hell, Wall Street. Actually, I saw something that the New York Stock Exchange might leave New York City, of all places. But here's what I'm getting at. Ireland said, "Hey, your financial firms can move to Ireland. We won't penalize you the way New York City does from a tax perspective." And I've had clients in the financial industry who were speaking. It was, I think Bloomberg was in office at the time, and they were saying, "Hey, if you guys can't get this straight, we're going to just take our corporate headquarters and move it to Ireland because we have tax advantages there." So what I'm saying is groups create advantages for other people to do business with them from around the world.
It's all about who you know, sir.
Those are different kinds of conversations. And there's some people who can handle that conversation and some who don't. Each man is responsible for finding people who belong in a tribe with him. And if you're not finding them, then you may be fishing in the wrong pond. Can you get that? Can you get that, Sam? But whether it's women or men, and look, I already talked about how the Black community cannibalizes its most brilliant minds by ridiculing them. We understand that. So we understood these are the problems, and now we started talking about Here are some ways to move forward. That doesn't, the people who don't belong, who don't fit into the paradigm to move forward, we don't need to address them anymore. Or do we?
Okay. So on the subject of racism, I guess my point of view, like, I don't see racism of the racist. I see racism that's coming from my so-called own.
And we understand that, right? So if you understand that it's about group economics, and if your group doesn't know how to come together, so there are people who are rewarded for being entertainers in sports and music. We understand that, or the film industry. And if there are no people in the group who are willing to work with other people around the world, different races, different ethnic groups, to create a platform for others like you and other people who are very smart and want to use brain power instead of entertainment power, someone has to transform the mindset and start organizing that. And if the entertainers want to financially support it, that's great. But that doesn't mean you need to deal with the guy standing on the street corner. Let him stand there till he rots. But at some point, a new platform has to be built, and it has to be a new intention. And if the black community doesn't get, it's not about racism. It's about your group and your group working together, and also being able to work with other groups, other ethnic groups, other races. Because no group is doing this alone. China is a big support in the U.S. when it comes to finance. Japan has played a huge role in robotics and efficiency. Like, all these different groups play a huge role. You can't build a powerful group if you're still talking about the guy standing on the street corner. You follow me?
Yeah, let the guy stand on. Leave the guy to the street. Leave him to the streets. The streets will devour him anyways. You gotta find your people that are like-minded is a big thing, and just knowing the right. That's the thing. Knowing the right people and surrounding yourself with people like that. That's how you get your foot in the door. And just
Exactly.
work from there.
That's the point that I'm making.
But
I fully agree
Well,
what you just said.
Who cares about what these people that call other? Who cares about what these other people say and think about you? Just that's a big thing that needs to be taught. Otherwise, it's just gonna. But as long as ignorance is out there, there's nothing you can really do about it.
I fully agree. But that's why I got on the subject of racism, because from my opinion, the racism is not other races. It's coming from my own.
I get that. But so look, and when you find people who are willing to cooperate with you, to work with you, to listen to you, why are you still talking about the other people? Because if you do that, then you're doing exactly what you're accusing those people of doing.
Yeah, I mean, I
I
fully
think it was
understand.
Morgan Freeman that said, in order to end racism, just quit talking about it.
And that's well said, right? If you keep feeding a beast, it's going to grow. If you stop feeding it, it will die.
Yep.
That's my point to you. And then you got the media all in the middle of it now. Now that changes things. It's the media that's giving it that stuff fear.
Yeah, we're regressing.
Well, look, why do you think I put the post up showing how many people were killed by the police, right? So the media creates a certain mindset. So basically it comes down to this. Are you going to let the media outsmart you and dictate your mindset, or are you going to create a mindset that is focused and committed to building something? That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, one of the smartest things I've ever done. Like I haven't paid attention to mainstream media really in like 2 or 3 years, and it has done. I got away from social media, all that crap. I only use Facebook Messenger. I don't even get on Facebook anymore. And it has done so much for me, like mentally, especially. Like I got away from it and I started doing, oh, I read and my intelligence has just increased from that. And I'm bettering myself too. And from that. But yeah, that's off topic. Sorry. But yeah,
But see, that's the point, right? So if you understand this is about group economics, and your group is your group, right?
mhm,
It has nothing to do with race. It's the group of people who are willing to work together for the betterment of the whole, right? But you just need people in your tribe who are going to collaborate and have certain skills and competencies that support the group, and then the group needs to be able to reach out to people outside of the group to pull them in to support the growth of the group.
yes.
And I mean, it comes down to that, except a big part of that is doing exactly what you're saying. Turn off the television, develop yourself, master something, and the first thing you want to master is yourself.
Yeah.
I think that is overlooked. So when I talk about creating a new mindset, it's about a mindset where you master yourself so that the television isn't dictating the way you should think and who you should be around. I think that's the thing that people are missing. There is all this noise going around you. There are people standing on the street corner. There are people who just care about how much sex they get. There are people who just care about cars. What mindset do you have? Because technically, and this is going to sound ridiculous, technically you can transform the world just walking down the street being yourself, like the way Sam was saying. And if you really are committed to accomplishing something, and someone stops and asks you who you are and what you do, and you have a story to tell them about your group and about the things you're accomplishing, you can start pulling people off the street corner.
I agree. This is what I'm saying basically that we need to communicate with all races, because if we want to get forward, we can't minimize our association. Our association. We have to communicate with any and all in order to move forward. If you understand what I'm saying, which I'm sure you do.
Yeah, we all have to sit down at the table and get out of our feelings. That's a big thing. Everybody's caught in their fucking I'm sorry. Everybody's caught in their feelings instead of. I've been saying this for. I've kind of noticed this. We went from critically thinking to critically feeling, and feelings and politics in general, they just don't belong together because feelings are subjective, and sometimes subjective means it's wrong. They could be wrong. So, and when you just go off of feelings, it just you're asking for nothing but trouble.
Exactly. I fully agree.
But with me personally, too, I was brought up on the old school mentality. What doesn't kill you only makes you stronger, too.
Yes, sir.
That's my mentality. And like that dude just is poking feelings and stuff. The
I
when
learned.
they fleas and stuff. See, I'm thick skinned, too. If you know my background, I had to have thick skin by then. It's what I had to deal with coming up. So I'm like, people just need to turn their TV off, do some reading, or do some other extra activities. Cause this is ridiculous. And me, I'm like you say, I'm neutral.
Yeah. It's a lot, and a lot of this is just coming from our public education system, though. All this identity politics is a lot of the problem that it's perpetuating the whole racism thing. Because when you the group identity thing is like, no, it needs to be an individual identity, because that's what Martin Luther King was trying to preach, with the whole not by the skin color but by the individual. And that's what I was raised on. Don't judge them by their skin color, judge them by who they are. And,
When you said something about character, right? The character.
yes, character.
Right.
If somebody's a shitty person, I'm sorry, we're not allowed to cuss here. If somebody's a crappy person, I'm not gonna associate with them. I'm gonna burn that bridge as quick as possible, and I'm gonna go find somebody that's a good person. It's got good character. And that's where I said earlier it comes down to who you surround yourself with. If you surround yourself with stupid people, those stupid people are just going to keep bringing you down.
And I fully agree.
They don't want to
what I'm
work
saying.
to be on your level. So just ignore them, leave them to the streets. And
exactly.
So
yeah,
you don't even have to talk about them anymore, Sam.
Yeah.
Because the real point of it all, to back to what that Sam was talking about, the ones he claimed he run across, number one gonna be left behind while everybody else going on about their business. You know what I'm saying too?
Well, look,
those don't do nothing with themselves. They not gonna be able to hang in the new society that's on the way.
I played the video of Coach Greg Adams, and he talked about the poorest people will be slaves first. So,
oh yeah, that's true.
So
that's true, Ted.
So you've got to ask yourself, people who seem to be okay with going down the path of slavery, and it may not be in the next 10, 20, or even 50 years. Society could easily go back to socialism. Could easily put people in that kind of position.
But the thing about it is, they talking about communism. They're gonna be slaves on the communism. That's what they talking about.
I understand.
And I don't know how bad communism is as opposed to what it once was.
Look at the Bolshevik Revolution, sir. All you gotta do is look at the history of the Bolshevik Revolution to find out how bad communism is. Look at China back in the day. Like, history tells you how bad communism is. History tells you how bad socialism is. They've never worked. People die under those things. The Nazi Germans, they were National Socialists, and yeah, that's the big thing. Nothing good comes from either ideology.
Here's the
but
point.
My point was before the revolutionary war, gentlemen. That's my mindset was coming from. I don't know how bad it was back there. And you know what I'm saying? That's really what I was trying to get some type of comparison to what it is and what it's gonna be. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So yeah, I see someone in Instagram said those who control the economy holds the most power in society. And that's why I'm talking about group economics. There are people, and I should have written this down. I just saw, damn it. I think it was here in the New York area, or in New York specifically, but something very favorable for the Asian, I think specifically for the Chinese community. That is because of economic power. That's because when your group comes together, they work together, they create commerce, industry, they create wealth within their community, that they're able to then take that wealth to the politicians and write policies that are favorable for their group. That is what I'm talking about when I say group economics.
So can we agree that has nothing to do with color but your character as far as where you're trying to go?
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's what I said. Your group. Yeah. I said explicitly, your group may have nothing to do with race. It's people who will work together. I said that already. Right. So and if you look throughout history, I made it clear. China has been beneficial to the United States, and China is its own group. Right? And China is playing a very different game than the U.S.
And if you don't conform to their way, they either kick you out, throw you in prison, or delete you.
Well, look, China's doing business around the world, right? Mm-hmm. So China understands, like you say, they were a sleeping giant, right? So China kind of sat back and didn't participate in the global economy.
Well, they had to recover from, I think it was the First World War.
Well, no, but hold it. Just think of it this way. China's a long-term. They make 100-year plans. They don't do 5 and 10-year plans.
Oh, they've been a long-going dynasty for
Right. So they make
centuries.
100-year plans, and they would have observed the global economy for decades. And you could say, well, they were sitting back and recovering. But no, they were sitting back doing analysis and looking for how they can come in and dominate. And it's working. Like, they didn't just blindly and impulsively just jump out and say, we want to participate. They looked at how they could participate and have a dominant position.
They got with the right people and
Well,
said,
they
you
got
know,
the
you
right
if
people.
you hook you know, you scratch my back, I'll scratch your back by making this a law, and you know, I'll slip you a couple hundred G's, and there you go.
No, but you have to
Quid pro
understand,
quo.
as a group, they know how to work together, and they created something valuable that other people would want. So that's what I'm getting at. As a group, you come together and you create some value proposition that is marketable in the global marketplace. But if you're unwilling
Now,
to do that, see, that's a different kind of conversation. So whether it's natural resources, some kind of technology, intellectual property, there's something that you create.
I noticed you said that's a group, and that's the point that I want to stress. They have a common goal, but as blacks, I don't think we have a common goal.
You're focusing on the wrong people, because there are people who will
Okay,
work.
maybe I.
Quit focusing on the whole and the minority, and focus on the majority.
Listen, even if you start with a small percentage, you have to start somewhere. Within a group, like you can look at China, right? Look at Alibaba. That's one guy within a large group of Chinese. There's one guy who created his own group that supports the whole group. So what's the mindset you have, and who belongs in your tribe? You follow me?
Okay. Now, you spoke as a tribe. I personally think that as a black man, I have to move on to other tribes because my so-called tribe is not what's productive.
Well, what is it you want to accomplish? Because I
Now, I
assert,
mean, as far as moving forward,
Sam, hear what
you
I'm
said
gonna
the word.
hear what I'm going to ask you. I'm going to assert that right here, this second, right now, you are in the presence and on a platform with a tribe of people who can understand what you are thinking when it comes to progressing and moving forward. What kind of conversation do you want to have to support progress?
The conversation that we're having now. But as speaking in realistic views,
I don't know what realistic is, because there are
It's that
Nigerians.
thing that leaves a salty taste in your mouth.
Nigerians come here and get into the oil industry. So when you bring a tribe together, people have different skills. You get what I'm saying? So what I'm talking about natural resources, and people may say that's impossible, except why is it done? Why is it done so often? And look at the Chinese and how they are acquiring natural resources. That may be a huge picture. That's a long-term planning. They loan money to nations.
because they're on the same platform.
But someone had to create a platform, though. That's what you got to get, right? So when you get invited to the platform and you start talking about the people who don't belong on a platform, soon you're going to look like you don't belong on a platform. You follow me?
I get you.
What were you going to say, Kendrick? Kendrick, you just got to go, man. I asked you, what are you going to say?
Look, I was gonna ask you about the natural heat oil industry, because if you notice, that's another thing I noticed too, that a couple countries then got some stockholders in. that natural gas, and you know everybody can't get any of that.
Well, no, natural gas comes from oil wells.
Yeah. Me and you on the same page. Yeah,
So
somebody got to know what they're doing, bottling that gas, right?
Mhm.
Handling it, because everybody got to heat these houses right now.
well, look, this is why I'm talking about natural resources. There's a lot of brain power when it comes to understanding the oil industry, drilling it, whether it's oil, the crude itself, or the natural gas. There are lots of people who understand that. There's a lot of talent out there that can support having this. There's the iron ore industry, there's the gold industry. There are lots of places on the planet where you still can gain access. You need money, you need to raise capital for these things. So there are several moving parts, right? So there are people who understand the oil industry from a geologist. There are people who understand it from an engineering, and they understand the equipment that you need.
So how does it all tie into racism?
Because it's not racism, it's a group that works together for the best interest of their group. And
I agree. That's what I'm saying. I agree with you. That's what I was wondering. How does it tie into racism?
You asked me a question and I'm answering it, right? Do you want me to answer it?
Yes,
So
sir.
it's a group, and people are naming it racism because the group calling it racism is not being responsible for self-sustaining its own group. So as long as your group is dependent on other groups for its survival, you're at their mercy and you're going to cry victim. And if you say racism, then you get to be the victim and you can't be responsible for anything.
That's why I don't agree with the term racism. Exactly.
It's just a word that gives you lack of accountability.
Right. But if you're responsible for what you bring to the table, what you're willing to build, and the table you're willing to build, as opposed to begging for a seat at someone else's table.
Go create your own table. I mean, or
Right.
that'd be the only other option right there. Create your own table, and
you create a group. Your group creates a table. And there's why I keep repeating the same thing. Your group is going to create some value. And I keep using China. China created their own table. They went into the global marketplace with their own table, and they loan money. They want natural resources, so they go into Africa and say, "Hey, we'll loan you money. We'll build roads. We'll do all these great things. If you can't pay us back, don't worry. We're just going to take these natural resources over here, and we own them." And then they'll start moving into the country. So you've got to be really smart about the group you are putting together. If you're not talking about the accomplishments, the outcomes that you want to produce as a group, and you keep talking about the people who don't belong in the group, your group will accomplish nothing. You get that, right? Sam, you get that, right?
I get it, but you know, man, I gotta be difficult. It's like my thing is, why do blacks keep falling for this BS?
I already told you, there's a culture of not being responsible. It's long standing. And no one wants to be responsible for creating a new culture, because when we start having it, we keep talking about what's not happening. So understand this. Social anthropologists say a culture is nothing except a network of conversations. So when you look in a corporation, you want to change corporate culture. You're not going to change the desks. It doesn't matter if you change what you pay people. The culture of the corporation, any corporation in the world, is what people say. What they say about the company, what they say it is, what they say at the water cooler, and it even includes the things they won't say. It's what your vendors say about you, it's what your clients say about you, and that is your culture. And if all those people believe your culture is toxic, including the employees, that is what your culture is. It's toxic. So if you want to transform that culture from toxic to something else, you transform the mindsets, which transforms the conversations people have about the company, and they start generating new conversations and but you've got to now also have these conversations pointing towards some kind of specific outcome. And you're not worried about the people who don't like the culture. You create new conversations. It starts at the top. And so if you look at the Black community as being no different than any other human beings on the planet, the culture of the Black community is only a network of conversations. That's what it is. It's no magical formula. It's not in the clothes or the cars. It's the conversations about those things. It's the conversations about what people find valuable. This has nothing to do with your race or the country you live in. Culture is just what you say, and it includes what you won't say. So if you want to transform the conversations in the Black community, someone's got to start doing that. And why couldn't it be someone like you, Sam?
And I fully agree. It could be me, without a shadow of a doubt. So racism, in my opinion, is an excuse because ain't nobody stop anybody, man or woman, but I'm speaking on men, from doing what they want to do and achieve.
What I said, once it's built into the culture. So let me see. I'm just thinking of an example like that has nothing to do with race, right?
I'm trying to stay on topic of racism because
no. Listen. I'm just let me, so it becomes clear. So I know a woman who always has to be right, and she argues a lot with people. Doesn't matter if her employees, her boyfriend, her parents, friends. It doesn't matter. And she asked me, "Why do I always have to be right?" And I said, "Well," and you probably heard me tell this story. When you were about 5 years old, you probably gave the wrong answer. And she said, "Ooh, yeah, I remember. I remember the exact day. I was at a dentist office in the waiting area with other children and their parents. And the dentist came out and showed all of the children something and said, 'Children, who knows what this is?' She said she raised her hand first and she gave the wrong answer. When she gave the wrong answer, from that day on, her life was changed, and she was 5 years old. And she said to herself how embarrassing and how stupid she was, and she promised she would never let that happen again. So now, whenever she's in a situation where she could give the wrong answer, she would rather argue and fight so she never has that experience of being embarrassed and looking stupid. So she'll fight and argue with you, all because of that one thing that happened at 5 years old. If people can, and so what she did is created her own personal culture. What the deal is, she never had to be responsible for what happened when she was 5. Like, once she could see that her whole life has been dictated by one incident that happened as a 5-year-old, and she's not being responsible for it. Once she starts to be responsible and says, "Oh my God, I'm being a 5-year-old again. Let me back off and not argue with this person and hear what they're saying, and stop worrying about looking stupid or embarrassed." See, when people can have the tools to manage themselves and the conflict within themselves, it's easier to transform a culture. But if you just leave people on their own, they're going to self-perpetuate the very things that have been happening. So that woman I'm giving is an example of her not being responsible for an incident that happened to her, yet that incident is what has her argue with people to be right. You follow me on that, Sam?
yeah, I get it.
I know that that's a long story, but what I'm saying is that the Black community doesn't have a monopoly on that. That human beings do that. The Black community just kind of put it on steroids, right? And they're on stage, and they get other people to support them. What I'm talking about is being responsible for creating opportunities within the group. And that's going to require working alongside and in collaboration with a lot of different people. And you get that too, right? Chaos for you. Thanks for the support, the super chat,
There you
man.
go.
Thank you for that.
It's good to be diverse, but just make sure that them people are kind of in the same, how do I word it? Same frame of mind, I guess, would be the closest thing I could get to saying what I'm trying to
Same
think.
mindset. So
Yeah.
it's easier for them to come together and work together, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yep. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Right. And so when the door opens for that group and they're ready to engage you, question is, what are you going to do when the door opens? Are you going to keep talking about people who are on the other side of the door? Or are you going to walk through the door and start engaging with people?
You walk through the door and start engaging people, earn your salt. You got to get respect. You got to get that respect, and by giving that respect too, of course, and just knowing and mingling with the right people. It's like where I work, there's a lot of very important people in my town that go to where I work, and one of them is a graphics designer here, and he has me help him with his web stuff and live streaming our Sunday service and stuff like that. So, and that's getting my foot in the door for other things that could benefit me that I could take, and if I met when it yeah, and possibly work something with through that. I mean, hell, I could even start my own cleaning business and just clean the different churches here in town, and that's
Well, so actually, that's a great story. So I lived in DC, and I remember watching Koreans. They were cleaning a mall, and then within a year, instead of them having a job cleaning a mall, they got their friends and family, their group, and some of them could barely or not speak English at all. And they told the mall, they said, hey, instead of hiring us as employees, we'll just clean the mall and you just pay my company and I'll hire the people. You don't have to worry about it. And then they went to all the malls in the area. And then this Korean company was cleaning all the malls. So just exactly what you were saying.
Yeah.
But they created a group to do that.
Exactly. And sometimes you got to ask for help, and yeah, ask and you shall receive. I mean, it just depends on who you're asking is the important thing.
Well, you need to know who you're asking, right?
Exactly.
So who are you inviting to your group to support you? And are they going to have conversations that supports the outcome you're seeking?
Exactly. And they're probably going to want their cut too if it becomes successful. And by all means, give them their cut, because especially if they invested in your business, they deserve a cut after that because they helped you invest in the first place.
Right. Just have to be smart about that. And so someone in Instagram asked, why doesn't African culture in the motherland support Americans in the promised land?
Because they're over there in Africa.
No, you have Nigerians in Texas getting into oil business.
Yeah, they come over here, use our education system, and then go back to their country and help. And
they are creating oil drilling businesses in Texas. They're over here and setting up shop. They come, they get an education, and then they get a business, and they're in the oil business because maybe their family's in the oil business in Nigeria, so they have an understanding.
Okay, I see.
So they'll bring other Nigerians over, just like the Korean company brought other Koreans over from Korea to clean the malls. Vietnamese do it with the nail shop. The women going to get their nails done. They bring Vietnamese over, and these women can barely speak English, and they'll set them up with a place to stay and all that. But it's a group working for the best interest of the group. And what are the things that we have to do together to make this, to build our own table and it's successful? It's a different conversation. What's in the best interest of the group?
It's a good conversation.
Say that again.
It's a good conversation to be had, though.
It is, and so you can say, well, racism is going to stop us. What group are you going to put together? Now, look,
And
go ahead.
I was just saying, cause at the end of the day, Ted, back to what you were saying, it's a matter to the individual man said to which group or which tribe you gonna place yourself in, and that's what it's coming down to. The ones who want to make change, they gonna make change. The ones who want to linger and stay stagnant. That's the word I'm trying to use. Them the ones not gonna make it.
So, in my example of owning an oil well and then owning multiple oil wells, you can actually start pulling people off the corner and giving them jobs. See, if you don't have a table, then you have nothing to offer them. You can tell them how awful they are. If you start building a successful business with your group, you can actually start providing jobs to people.
Totally agree. And in particular, Lord knows if I was in that position, owning some wells or something, I'd love to give some brothers in particular an opportunity to get a job to
Right.
check that they qualified to do you know what I'm saying, to do the work.
Sometimes you have to train people. Or even Chaos for You is taught. Like look at what he just said. He could create a company and clean 20, 30 churches just in his town,
I
right?
know enough people that if I were to work, if I knew the right people, I know enough. I have enough friends that could use work, and all I'd have to do is talk to the people at my church. It might know somebody at another church and that could start the whole thing right there.
Right. You start getting contracts with churches, right? You become the expert. That is your expertise, man. We are the best in the world at cleaning churches. You want to hire us. And that's your group, your tribe, and I bet the first people you're going to hire is just what you said. You know people personally.
Yeah, people that are looking for jobs. Like, hey, cleaning's freaking easy.
Right.
So, I mean, you'd have to be really bad to get fired.
And the people you're going to hire are the people who are closest to you. You trust the most.
But the thing is, though, if they're not qualified to do the job, or they don't do a good job, they're gone. That's the thing. I'm going to hire people that are qualified to do that job.
Right. And the first people
Right.
you're going to reach out to are people that you know and you trust, the kind of work ethic they have.
Exactly.
And then they're going to say, hey, man, I know I have a cousin or a buddy of mine. He needs a job too. Can you give him a job? Right. So you build a network just
Yep.
based on the people that you know. And that's what I'm talking about in group economics. It's leveraging your group, your own tribe. Everyone has their own mini tribe that branches out to a larger tribe.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with that. That's not being racist. It's not prejudice. You're going with the people that you know best. And even in corporations, a lot of jobs, they may post jobs as a formality. A lot of jobs are filled by nepotism, by someone who already knew the hiring manager or knew someone within a company.
Yep. I guess I got hired through. Oh, I didn't know the boss, but I knew the person that worked at the church, and that's how I got my job.
But perfect example.
But
See?
yeah.
So you were hired because you knew someone, right?
Well, I also showed them that I could do the job. That was another thing. I had like a week where they let me kind of show them what I could do, and at the end of that week, I was hired on.
So the deal is knowing someone got your foot in the door, keeping your foot in the door was on your work ethic in your
Yes,
mind.
sir. Yes, sir.
So yeah, I get that, right? So I get it. So you would hire, if you were to expand, you would hire people you know, and if they want that would get their foot in the door because they know you. Keeping their foot in the door is quality.
That's on them.
Quality work, right?
Yeah, of course.
Right. And that's what I think has has to be understood. That there are lots of people who can work together, and racism can be an artificial barrier that can keep you out of opportunities,
It's like a mindset, in my opinion.
or
This whole racism
or it
thing.
can stop you from engaging other people who could be valuable to you.
Yes.
And so I played Coach Greg Adams, so no one would think that this is just my crazy idea. As Sam, you were saying, you can say things and people will think you're crazy.
Look up Thomas Sowell and that other guy I mentioned earlier. I forgot his name all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Thomas Sowell's a good one, for sure. And let me find his name again real quick. It's in the chat.
You put his name in the chat.
I did.
Okay.
Thomas Sowell and the other guy was I just looked up his name. But Thomas Sowell is a really good one to look up. He's got a lot of video. He's got some videos floating around on YouTube that say a lot.
Okay. So I'm gonna close this down. 3 hours. We've been doing this for a bit. I think we covered a lot of ground. And Sam, I know you like to arm wrestle with me every once in a while, so that's cool. I'm cool with that because it's important to give perspectives that are looking in a different direction, right? So you have to address these things. So, guys, final thoughts, conclusions, takeaways from this conversation. Love to hear them.
I just need to lead by example, and just as long as the person's doing good, and that's the thing. We've got too many toxic people trying to lead on top of it, and that they're the wrong kind of people to be following and idolizing.
Okay, so your takeaway from this is lead by example, and that's important.
Well, it's part of it. You have good leaders and you have bad leaders. Is the thing, and it's knowing who to follow is part of it.
Okay, all right. Kendrick, you still there?
Oh yeah, I'm right here, kid.
Takeaways, final
My
thoughts.
takeaways, last minute comments is been in agreement with the chaos dude right there. We gonna have to just about tune that all. Like you said, these toxic people is trying to perpetuate a negative stigma on everybody, kid, and just and just keep open man and just treat everybody right, kid.
Okay.
Larry Elder is his name.
Larry Elder, you said?
Yes, Larry Elder. He's got a bunch of videos floating around on YouTube as well that are very informative.
And he gives great statistical facts.
Yes, he does.
So, and I like to do that every once in a while also, so that people don't think I'm just talking. Someone's given a final thought. It's a good one. Focus on your strengths. Don't worry about the people that don't support. Find the ones that will. Those are great words. Thanks.
Surround yourself with good people. That's the
Sam,
important thing.
Samuel, final thoughts, takeaways, conclusions from this conversation today. Love to hear your final thoughts or takeaways. Sam, you may be busy, huh? Got it. He's on mute. You realize you're on mute, Sam, or? Okay. So, hey, guys, on all the social media platforms that are watching this, thank you. This was an important conversation. I know it's probably not the most favorite topic for people to take on. So, my takeaway is that it takes something to drive new conversations that transform the culture, and that it's you cannot be upset with people who are sort of caught in the middle of two different worlds, right? They have one foot in the world of things you're talking about and another foot in the world that they came from, or that the one they see every day, and you can't beat them up for that. You just really have to talk them through. There are a lot of good people out in the world who want to contribute, and creating platforms for those people to contribute. I mean, this, of course, is a platform for people to talk, and you know, there are many people in here who have their own businesses, uh, and like you just did, Chaos. You know, if there are ways that we can support one another in the businesses that you do, this is just an example of how you can use this as a network to work with other people to accomplish things that require more than your own brain and hands. So I appreciate and love the fact that, you know, so many great minds come here together and comment. I appreciate your financial support, guys, and the super chats and PayPal.
I appreciate you having me, sir.
Yep. And next week I'll take on another provocative topic. Don't know what it is yet. Love you guys, and Instagram and the feedback you're giving.
Let
And
it be extra saucy. I like extra saucy, sir.
and until next week, everyone have a great evening, great week. I guess it's a long weekend for the President's Day holiday, and if wherever you are, hopefully you don't get too much snow this week.
Minus 12 degrees with the real feel. I am chilling, sir.
Yeah, we're getting more snow here in New York and New Jersey, so you know,
It's awful. I hate it. I live in Texas. I'm used to seeing no snow.
sorry to hear it, but this is Northeast. We're accustomed to it. But
Oh, believe me, I remember the snow up there. I lived in Maine when I was younger,
Oh.
and it was, oh my
Oh.
God.
yeah,
Knee-high to a grasshopper stepping off the porch and completely disappearing under the snow.
very cool. Hey, have a great evening, guys. Thanks a lot. Take care, and I'll
You
talk.
too, sir.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.